So Nagi no Asukara finished a few weeks ago. At the time I wasn't really planning on making a review about it, because the episodes I'd watched didn't really stand out from the other anime airing at the time. It wasn't until I went to finish it and watched the last 10 or so episodes that I started to really enjoy it. I don't really like reviewing anime series right after they've finished, as there tends to be a cloud of initial biased love for the series, also known as the honeymoon stage. Chances are your opinions of a show will change after a few weeks of thinking it over. So I try and avoid the honeymoon stage, as during this stage people tend to be a lot more defensive and a lot less objective. That being said, I really felt like reviewing Nagi no Asukara this week, so yeah. At first look, this show looks like a very easy, lovey-dovey romance anime series, with an underwater twist, and for the most part, your assumption would be correct. But there are some very relevant and controversial themes that play a huge part in the story. Racism is a huge problem in the world right now. Humans are intelligent enough to get themselves into new and exciting places, but still not intelligent enough to overcome our built-in ignorance. Nagi no Asukara takes this, squeezes it down, and delivers it as one very understandable, very relatable story. The plot takes place in a small seaside town. In the town live your bog-standard air-breathing humans, but neighbouring them is an underwater town, where the people can both breathe air and underwater. As these are just small towns, both the societies have to share things in their life like schools, and they cross over a lot in their daily lives. As you can imagine, there's a lot of discrimination between the two people, and it would be fair to say that a few heads clash every now and again. So we have two sets of people, all different ages, personalities and sexes. Their differences are unignorable. This has caused a lot of friction over the years. So the thing I liked about Nagi no Asukara is the way they handled it. It was handled in a very modern way, something I wasn't expecting to see in a Japanese cartoon. The racism wasn't approached in a fairy tale-like fashion, where they all just learned to accept and love each other. They were forced into overcoming their ignorance to survive, again done in a very realistic fashion, something that didn't sound like it was straight out of a Disney movie. I don't want to go into exactly how they pulled this off because I want to keep this review spoiler free, but I was pleased with how they didn't use the normal cliches to fix racism. But the main focus of the show was the romance, and there was a lot of it. This wasn't a love triangle, but more a love hexagon. Every character seemed to like someone else from the group, who liked someone else, who liked someone else, so on, so on. It got to the point where it was beyond realistic and just seemed a bit silly, which was a shame because they didn't need to make that many romances. Although I didn't feel completely satisfied coming out of the show, I did feel pleased with how they executed everything. I felt like there was a lot left untouched, and some plot points maybe seemed a bit rushed, but I wasn't really expecting much from a high school romance anime. There was a really big cast in this show, but none of the characters really stood out. Hikari was kind of our main character, but he didn't necessarily get much more focus than any of the other characters, but he did seem to have the most ties when it came to the romances. Individually, each character wasn't that special and could easily be removed or replaced, but as a group they worked really well and created a lot of emotion. Thinking back, I find it really hard to pick out certain characters that I could talk about for more than a couple of sentences. But there aren't many. But the sheer size of the amount of characters and the feelings created worked pretty well. I do appreciate the skill it would have taken to write a story that included each individual character just as equally as the other ones, but I think I would have liked to see a main character stick out a bit more. But this isn't a terrible thing, they made what they did work very well. Living in Scotland, I'm almost surrounded by the ocean, and since Scotland's population is very spread out, there's a lot of little seaside towns. I spent pretty much all of my childhood holidays at these places, so when I started watching this show I was really impressed with PA Works' depiction of a small seaside town. Everything from the worn down paint on the walls to the abandoned fishing gear really reminded me of the old seaside town I used to visit as a child. Very few anime try to venture outside the big city high school, so this was a refreshing change. Not to mention the quality was much more superior to your normal anime show. I was genuinely taken aback by how nice some of the landscape shots were, something that only a few anime have managed to do. This show rarely left the boundaries of the town, so they pretty much had their whole animation budget to spend on one location. That being said, it still looked very nice. Nagi no Asukara was a very enjoyable romance, with a very relevant theme. It was addressed in a very modern way, but at the same time wasn't too realistic. Although Nagi no Asukara might not have been the best paced show, for the most part I enjoyed its romance and I was especially impressed with the animation. So the big question, should you watch Nagi no Asukara? For fans of romance series, yes, but if you tend not to enjoy romance shows, then I would probably give this one a miss. Chances are if you don't like the normal romance anime plot, then you probably won't like this one. In terms of romance, it didn't really do anything new. That being said, if you don't mind romance in anime, then definitely give this one a watch. If you did like this show and are looking for something similar to watch, I'll recommend some. Kids on the Slope. It's a very stylized romance show set in a very specific setting, just like Nagi No Asukara. And Waiting in the Summer, a romance show with lots of love triangles and a great atmosphere. So that's been my review of Nagi No Asukara. If you did enjoy, leaving a like would be very much appreciated. If you want to see more of my reviews, you can click the subscribe button, and if you want, you can click on any of the links on the screen. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.